and chained the door, then returned once again to the balcony. She slid back a window and peered overhead. It didn't seem feasible that a person could climb down from the roof 2 floors above. Likewise, to enter from an adjoining apartment would have meant negotiating a 13-story drop while sliding open the not too obliging windows.
At any rate, all this junk out here probably create quite the obstacle course.
She thought. Nonetheless, she locked the balcony door when she came back.
And now for Saul.
She went into her room to collect her wand and her driver's license with its organ donor sticker. She had the nagging anxiety about being shoved in a morgue with all her vital organs intact and going to waste. Although I'm not sure
my riddled liver would be quite sought after. Speaking of riddled livers...
She'd left the murder mystery with its gory cover lying on the floor for all the world to see. She furtively stuck it under the mattress.
There.
Brushing her hands together, a job well done. She went out and put her boots on in the shoeway, as she dubbed it. Then, on guilty-shod tiptoes, she compulsively returned to the kitchen to check that she turned off the stove. She had. She stood for a moment in the still apartment, listening to the muffled sound of the traffic, the ticking of the clock, smelling the clean, empty smell of the apartment, a smell so vacuous that she thought she could detect the odor of the new polyester of the bedspread in her room. Nothing creaked, nothing dripped. She left, winking at herself in the shoeway mirror as she went out. Needless to say, she locked the door behind her. Hey. Oh, you just turned it on. No wonder it made noise. Okay.
That night, sitting and writing at the little round table along the apartment, Carla Winnemute pondered the postcard she had bought to send to a boyfriend. It showed a cartoon of a round man wearing a bow tie. Above this were printed the following words. 15 night. On Sunday we are both free. We have a secret hiding. It is the map 100 years ago. We are so excited now. She flipped it over and reread what she'd read. Hi, sweetie, I made it. Having a hell of a time trying to figure things out. Postcards, for example. No scenic scenes of soul, only these strange pictures and puzzling sentiments. This one almost makes sense. My roommate's great. She smokes. Here's my phone number. Love me. Then laid it aside, took out a piece of notebook paper and began a letter to her neighbor.
Dear Joanna, details. I've been here 24 hours and I'm thoroughly mystified. How to cross the street, where to buy a newspaper. How am I supposed to bobbing and nodding every time someone does it to me? How many won to the dollar? What is it that roasted stuff they sell on the street that doesn't look quite like some sort of nut? What is Picari sweat? Should I buy a particle mask? All these questions provoked by a four-way into this weird wonderland across the street. To begin at the beginning, walking out the front door, I found that there's an outside walkway with a chest-high concrete wall between oneself and a 14-story fall. I looked out over a desert of identical high-rises. The buildings are all the same, the color of volcano dust. From where I stood, I saw nary a soul down below. Once out on the complex and on the street, it was apparent that I was in Seoul, a city of 10 million Koreans, all of them seemingly right there. I hummed New York, New York, as I pretended to know where I was going. Ha! There's a 3-block area under there jammed with little shops for this and that, noodle joints, barbershops, and thousands of Koreans buying and selling and speaking Korean, which is a sort of nasal chuffing, ringing affair with the final vowel drawn out to a sound like we do when we say, ah, as we try to think of our next word. I saw not a single foreigner. I did see quite a few people wearing white particle masks. They didn't look like radical rioters. They just looked like people wearing dust masks. Anyhow, I kept spying exits that went nowhere for my purposes. I tramp up the stairs to street level and find myself viewing where I wanted to be from a distance of a quarter mile. Finally, I stumbled into where I was going and got lost in there. I entered a subterranean, marble-floored plaza with a grand fountain that sported a reproduction of a Venetian facade. Heroic sculptures, arm extended, fingers curving invitingly, water lapping at their stone toes. I followed an N avenue lined with ritzy shops selling furs, jewelry, celadon, and on to yet another huge plaza with glass elevators gliding up and down through another crystalline fountain. Eventually, I wound up in front of a reconstructed Buddhist temple gate, every square inch of it painted in colors that don't usually exist outside of kindergarten. Inside was an acre of miniature Korea. I walked through diorama of villages, cities, palaces, down through the ages. People with little figures dressed according to their time and station, performing their various tasks and duties. Scribes, pharmacists, artisans, woodcutters, housewives, emperors, armies, and here and there a festival or ceremony could be seen. A picnic, a party, a wedding, a funeral. I came out 3 hours later, and still had to find a way out. More ritzy shops, antiques, fast food places, no coffee. Painted screens, carved chests. There seemed no way out. I came upon a vast empty area. A ceiling, a twinkling configuration of tiny colored lights, eastern constellations perhaps. This area was bounded on one side by a staircase, so I went up to it and found myself looking through a wall of glass into another Korean village, this one on a larger size scale. Bridges, hillsides, waterfalls, winding streets, real buildings, real trees, human workers in orange jumpsuits, still toiling to put on the finishing touches. Giants in a chest-high world. I was beginning to feel like I was trapped in a nightmare. What next? How can I get out? Well, much later, I at last hit upon a street-level exit. I had to run a phalanx of white-gloved, red-suited young women, 6 on either hand, who startled me by bowing deeply in unison and saying something in Korean. Out on the street at last. But was I really? Or would this turn out to be yet another diorama, a life-size mechanized model of Seoul? Although I was now right across the boulevard from my apartment, I had to find and re-enter the underground market and wander around and go out the wrong exits and see my building from 4 or 5 new angles before I finally hit upon the right one. I had been lost in South Korea for 6 hours, all under one roof. It looked big from the outside, but not that big. All that, and I never did find a newspaper. Maybe I never will. Oh well. It's only for 2 months. About that merge.
At precisely that instant, the front door opened the length of the chain and then stopped. Her heart, oh yeah, oh, I have to read all this.
No, I'll read it. Her heart screamed up to her ears, bulleted back to her chest, her muscles melted, regrouped. In less than a second, she'd stuffed the letter into the waiting envelope with a tongue like a tennis ball. She'd managed to seal it.
Who is it?
Carla called, forcing herself to be firm as she got up to answer the door. It was, of course, Quick, back from her BOC job with the